Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Pop Rocks Radio. As always, I am your host, Bijan. Yes, you're stuck looking at me once again today, but it's only because we have something really cool for you. Today is the second in our series of interviews where I get to chat with some of our favorite artists, and today I have the unbelievable good fortune of talking with not just one, but two members of this amazing band about their incredible music. Who are they? Let's have a look.
It's hard to overestimate the place Artful Dodger holds in rock history. While 70s rock languished between frothy pop and pompous prog, the music of Artful Dodger was a revelation. These boys from Fairfax, Virginia, originally signed to Columbia Records and released 3 incredible albums in the 1970s, culminating in the power pop classic Rave On in 1980. Known for their electrifying live shows, they toured the country building a rabid fan base that remains loyal even to this day. They occupied that rare space where rock bands remembered how to write great songs. Though they may have left the stage for now, the guys in Artful Dodger remain close. Their music immediately feels lived in, timeless, and just like what it is, laughter between friends.
I can't believe I get to say this, but ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please welcome to the stage from the band Artful Dodger, Steve Cooper and Gary Herrewig. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello, good to see everybody.
Happy New Year. How are you guys doing?
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. We're doing great.
Great. I hope the New Year's treating you well so far.
Yes, no complaints.
Oh, good.
We're just glad to be here and be remembered.
You are remembered by a lot of people, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Well, I'm so excited to have you both here. Since I started the channel, one name that keeps popping up in the comments for some of the videos is Artful Dodger. Artful Dodger. I can't even say it 3 times in a row. Sorry. But one guy wrote, he said, have you heard Artful Dodger? If you haven't, stop what you're doing and put them on right now. And I have
You
been.
read your letter, Steve.
You know that guy?
You read my letter.
Yeah, okay. I have been playing your records nonstop ever since. I mean, what an amazing catalog you guys have. And you have how I should put it, really rabid fans out there. And they're not all in Cleveland, by the way. You can count me among them. Before we dig into your history, I started this channel with the intent to highlight so-called power pop music. But since I've been doing it, I've come to learn that though there are some similarities across the genre with the guitar riffs, the hooks, the harmonies, there's really a wide range of styles. And power pop is really just one way to refer to all forms of melodic rock. One question I like to ask is, when do you remember first hearing the term power pop, and when did people start using it to describe what you guys do?
It wasn't right off the bat, that's for sure. It was a few years into our career that we started hearing the term.
Hmm.
And around that time too, people were always saying, "Oh, you guys remind us of Big Star." And we'd heard of Big Star, but we never heard them because Washington, D.C. isn't the kind of radio market that you'd hear things like that. Not back in the 70s.
Right, right.
So we were always behind the curve on Big Star and Power Pop. We were just doing what they were writing.
I think that for a lot of bands, except maybe with the exception of someone like Raspberries, they're bands that were labeled power pop were not getting a lot of airplay a lot of places, right? And I'm gonna, every time I say the term power pop, I'm gonna put it in quotes because I think some people it brings a negative connotation, and there are lots of reasons for that. I don't know if you have an opinion about why that is.
Over the years, I can say that if somebody just discovers that I played in a band and they always say, "What kind of music did you play?" If I say power pop, I get an expression of I don't know what that is. What would that be?
Right.
So I think it's mostly a music business term or music world term. If the people are outside of it, they don't know it.
Well, as soon as the music business labels you as power pop, it's like they don't seem to know what to do with you, the label itself.
The label, yeah, the label, the management, the public, nobody knew what to do with us,
Right.
but we just kept doing it.
For our purposes, we'll throw that term around, but I think I don't want to limit the how we refer to your music because it's really a wide range of rock music that you guys play. Uh, to get kind of started back where you guys started, are you both are from Fairfax? Is that right?
Northern
Yes.
Virginia, yeah,
Northern Virginia. Okay.
we're
Uh,
we're the only two left in Northern Virginia.
oh, right, right. Where are the other guys in the band?
Bill is in Florida. Steve is in North Carolina. Peter is in Italy, and we lost Gary Cox years back, but he
Right.
he would have been here with us.
That's
He
awesome.
would have stayed in Northern Virginia.
Okay. So Gary, of course, you're a guitar player. Steve, I know you started out on guitar as well. Who are you guys listening to that inspired you to pick up instruments?
Go ahead.
Credence, anything on top 40 radio in the 60s, but of course the Beatles, the Stones, all the English bands, but also Credence, Motown.
Wow, okay. That's a wide range.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a good thing about radio in the 60s. You got a little bit of everything.
right, right. What was the music scene like in Fairfax in the early 70s?
Can't say there was a big scene. There were lots of bands, not a lot of places to play.
Mm.
High school dances, church dances.
Mhm.
There were no, say, clubs around, Fairfax at that time. You would have to go into Washington, into DC for
Okay.
clubs.
And that's where the scene was for you guys when you started out?
Yes,
Yeah. So the band that became Artful Dodger was a melding of two bands, right? So Steve, you and Billy Palicelli, um, your cousin, I might add, were in
yes,
a band called Badge, and Gary Cox, and Steve Brigida were in a band called Homestead.
Correct.
So what kind of music were you
Yeah.
guys playing?
the top 40 stuff of the day, really. Like I say, the Beatles, Stones, Credence, some soul music. But we met, we were both playing at this club in Herndon, Virginia, and that's where we met. We both admired each other's bands and the material we were doing.
So how did you guys decide to start working together?
While I was drafted, I was in the Army, and Gary and Steve and Gary stole my cousin Bill because because we didn't have a band while I was away.
Uh-huh, okay.
So they got him into their band, and then Bill got me into their band.
Well, that the other band already had a bass player, is that correct?
Yes,
So you came back and they said we want you
That's what happened.
pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, we wanted Steve.
wasn't a matter of ability; it was a matter of personality,
Ah,
which is big, really, when you think about it. You're out on the road and you're together 24/7, and getting along is a big part of the early days.
oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. It's like a family, right?
Right.
Yeah, getting along with each other is harder than playing music, really. To be with somebody,
Yeah.
every day, all the time, you got to be able to get along with each other. It doesn't matter how good you can play if you can't get along with them, it's not going to work. Very difficult.
It's driving around in a car all together from place to place, and it's got to be like a pressure cooker, right?
Yeah.
It
Well, I
can
think the
be.
fact
Yeah.
that, so many years later, you guys are still sitting together, obviously you guys mesh, and I think that's awesome. So, yeah,
We all stayed close over the years. We did.
And we were pretty tight knit. I mean, as hard as it is to get a band together, people that can be with each other that much and get along with each other and agree on, you got to agree on more than you disagree. To do that is, we were lucky that we did that. A lot of give and take and a lot of comedy, a lot of laughing
oh,
and some music thrown in. Yeah.
some music along the way somewhere, right? Well, uh, Gary, how did you and Billy start writing together?
Steve Bridget and I called Bill and Steve when our two bands, they both fell apart about the same time.
Mhm.
And we called Bill and Steve and said, let's make one band out of the two bands because we'd been friends with each other. We knew them. We all sort of liked we had the same influences and the same stuff we listened to.
Mhm.
And we got together and really the first day we got together, we wrote, I don't know, two or three songs the first time. And it was just like, okay, well, this got some potential here. It was fun. It was fun. There was a lot of laughing and we played music that we liked. Pretty simple.
Billy was also a instrumentalist as well. But were you focused primarily on the music part and he was doing the lyrics? Was it kind of a give and take on both sides?
I guess, yeah, I guess a little bit of both. We both do both. Bill was mainly the singer, so he would do the words, but he's a great guitar player and a great drummer too. And we just got together and see what worked.
Great. Well, it worked really well. So, I just want to add too, I wanted to say this earlier, Gary, I looked at a lot of different interviews before I met with you guys, and you are conspicuously absent from all of them. So I'm really glad that Steve was able to grab you for this.
Yeah, thank
Um,
you. I'm glad I'm here, but this is not natural. I'm sweating. Yeah, it's
You
very
think you're nervous?
yeah. You were saying you were nervous before we did this. This is like I almost bailed on my way over to
oh
Steve's.
my gosh, I'm glad you didn't
It's
know.
very uncomfortable, but it's fun. I like talking about this stuff.
Well, yeah, we're just all friends here talking. So, at least I keep telling myself that so I don't freak out myself.
Yes.
Well, when you guys put the bands together, you changed your name. You became Brat. Is that right?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. And you did one single as Brat called Not Quite Right.
Correct.
Okay. And this was your song with Billy.
Yes. Yeah, and it had on the back of it. It had "Long Time Away," which was
Okay.
on the first album, a different version, but the same song.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And we wrote those the first day we got together, like within an hour. Yeah, they were. It was pretty quick.
I was looking on YouTube and because I couldn't find the song, and that the only place I found it was on YouTube, and somebody put a video of your song with the video of Kiss playing it, which actually I don't know if you've seen it. It actually kind of works. It's a really rocking song, and I know we're going to talk about Kiss later because you guys were on tour with them, but I just wanted to bring that up. So was this for this single, were you just selling it in stores locally at record stores in Virginia?
I don't remember. We did it mainly for promotional to do shows with, and just to have it to pass out to radio stations. I mean, we were really, when I think about that, we were really young. And it was just like, okay, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to make a record if nobody else wants us to. That was always our goal was to make records.
Hmm.
When we got together with Bill and Steve, it was purposely to make records. And that was the first step.
Gary Cox took your demo up to New York. He had gone through, the story was that he was going through your record collection, Gary, and he was like picking names off the back of records that seemed to fit with your kind of music. And he went up to New York to meet with management or people to manage you guys. Was that the song that he took with you?
That was one of the songs he took. There was we had a tape with, I'd had a lot of songs on it, probably too many.
Mhm.
And he had a list of people he was going to go see. Yeah. Producers, A&R people. Just, we didn't really know what we were doing.
Yeah.
There was no map for this. We just knew, okay, that's where there's nobody where we live. So maybe they're in New York.
Yeah.
And he went up there with this list. And the first place he went to, they listened to it. And I think really they heard Bill singing and they said, don't, don't go to your next stop. Stay here. And that's really what happened. He didn't. He said, okay, well,
Stroke of luck.
I'll stay here.
First,
And
the
that was
first
it.
stop.
First stop.
Wow, that's
Lieber
amazing.
Krebs.
Yeah,
Lieber
David Krebs,
Krebs.
Steve Lieber.
So they were also managing artists like Aerosmith, AC/DC, Ted Nugent. Is that
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
not at the time. When we first met them, they had just, they were managing Aerosmith. That was really their biggest act. And Aerosmith hadn't really, they weren't the Aerosmith everybody knows now. They were just getting ready to become that Aerosmith.
Just prior to Toys in the Attic.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. This is around 1974-ish, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
And then after that, they got you a 3-album deal with Columbia.
Correct.
So how did you become known as Artful Dodger?
There was a band in New York called Brad. And when we met David and Steve, our managers, they said, well, there's already this band, you got to change the name. So we changed the name and that was it. We met Jack Douglas.
He produced your first album. Did you guys have a say in that? Was it somebody that Columbia paired you with?
I'd say Lieber Krebs paired us with Jack because he was already working with Aerosmith.
Okay.
He was producing the Toys in the Attic album. And David said to Jack, listen to these guys and tell me what you think. And he said, they're so bad, I got to be involved.
They need my help.
Which is true.
Well, how is it working with him?
Jack was a lot of fun. He was,
Yeah.
He had experience. We were lacking experience. It was a great experience for us, and I think he enjoyed it too. I know people have talked to him over the years and brought up our album, and he's still thinks of it very fondly and is proud of what he achieved on that.
Yeah. It was rock and roll boot camp. It was really, he took us to school and it was, we were willing students and he was a good teacher. But it was like boot camp. He broke it down and built it back up.
Yeah, it wasn't a matter of, okay, we got Jack, we got a band, let's go into the studio. We hit our practice room and he just drilled us over and over. And that would be the whole band during the day. And then at night, Steve, Bridget, and I would come back with Jack and he just drilled the rhythm section over and over. Taught us a lot.
You mentioned the rhythm section, and that is really one of the core elements of the band. And I know, Steve, we've talked about this a little bit, but the sound of your bass is it's so prominent in the mix, and it just sounds awesome. Was this something that came from Jack Douglas, or was this something that the band always wanted the sound to be?
The band always liked the bass up in the mix. I never had to say anything, and I don't know that I would have that early on. But the band liked it, Jack liked it, and wonderful for me to have it like that. And we've talked about the rhythm section carrying the band, but no, I'm kidding.
Gary's like, okay.
Yeah, no.
I think every element in your guys' band is so strong, and it just all contributes to the sound. It's really cool. I'm curious though. I mean, you have 5 guys. I'm assuming you're in your early 20s at this point. You're up in New York.
Barely.
Just barely. Okay. You're up in New York City. You're recording at the record plant, if I'm not mistaken. with Jack Douglas. You guys are, it's five young guys on the verge of becoming rock stars. Did you just go crazy in New York? Was it just all work all the time?
It was mostly work,
Mhm.
but I mean, we were in Studio A. Bruce Springsteen was in Studio B. Jay Giles was somewhere in the building mixing. I mean, we got to run into people from the business, and that was just, it was pretty great for us.
That's very exciting. The album comes out, and the single Columbia releases is Silver and Gold, the one Gary Cox song on the album, which is a great song. What was everybody thinking this was a great idea?
Nobody thought it was a good idea.
Somebody at Columbia did, but other than that, nobody else did because it didn't represent the band at the time.
It's a good album song. Yeah, it's a good song and it fit the album really nice, but it wasn't representative of the band. Bill wasn't even singing it. They're going to release a single, and our singer wasn't on it. That caused some problems for sure.
Right. Problems internally or just with
Oh no, big time problems internally.
uh,
Yeah,
uh,
just everything you could imagine and
oh
more.
boy.
So the compromise was, well, Bill will sing it. We're still going to put the single out, but Bill will sing it,
Uh,
which didn't serve anybody well.
well, like you said, it's a great song. It is just not, it's very different from everything else that's on the album.
Yes.
So you guys went on tour after this album came out. Who were you guys touring with at this point?
We played with everybody. I mean, really, almost anybody from that time period. We played with Art, Ted Nugent,
Rush,
Rush, all over the place with Rush, James
Kiss,
Cotton,
James Cotton Blues Band,
Leonard Skinner.
Leonard Skinner. I was just,
Yeah.
they're throwing us together with everybody just to see where.
Kansas. We played a bunch of shows with Kansas.
Kansas, yeah.
Wow, that's quite a range. Yeah.
And some
Yeah.
British bands, the Pretty Things and
The Kinks.
the
I
Kinks.
think that was later, but we played a handful of shows with the Kinks.
And what was that band we were talking about recently with the guitar player?
Which one?
Uh, Another British band that we played with.
Oh, Rory Gallagher.
Well, we played with Rory Gallagher. We played with. No, I'm thinking of that band where the guy recently passed away, the guitar player. Um, Rock and roll guys.
British rock. Sweet.
It'll come to us tomorrow.
Well, so then your next album in 1976, this is Honor Among Thieves. My favorite album from you guys, I'll just tell you this up front, is Rave On. But that said, this album, Honor Among Thieves, is a very close second. I mean, it's one of those albums that I can listen to from start to finish and never skip a song. Everything on here is really just solid. Most of the songs here, Gary, were you and Billy. Were you writing this while you guys were on tour for the first album?
Some of it, yes. A lot of the songs were written before the first album came out.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
When we did, I know we had Scream was written for the first album, and we had Scream and It's Over, which are kind of in the same emotional range. And I remember talking to Jack and saying, "Oh, we'll put one on the first album and one on the second album," and it was just a flip of the coin, which was which. So some of the songs were written. That wasn't the only one, and some were written while we were on tour, and some of them were written while we were at home. So just
And with the first album, a lot of those songs hadn't been played live very much
Mhm.
before we got into the studio. But with Honor Among Thieves, quite a few of the songs had been played for a while. We'd been playing them live, so they had a little bit of a different punch to them.
You had a different producer for this. I know Jack Douglas was executive producer, but you were working with Eddie Leonetti. Is that correct?
Yes, a protege of Jack's.
How were they different in how they worked?
I'd say they were very similar, but uh, Eddie didn't have Jack's experience at the time. I don't know.
Didn't have Jack's ears either.
He was not as studio savvy, I think, as Jack was. And do we have a different engineer?
Yeah, we had the deal was uh, Jack Douglas had a month set aside to do our second album, and we had a chance to go on tour with Kiss, and it was in the same month. So we said, okay, Jack, you'll be the executive producer. He would come by. I don't remember who he was working on. He was producing a different album, but he'd come by in the afternoons and the evenings and listen to what we were doing and make suggestions and comments. And that's what the executive producer was. And so we chose not to use Jack, and we used Eddie, who was Jack's protege, and we went on tour with Kiss.
I know in interviews people bring it up to say like what the heck was that about? You know, pairing you guys with Kiss. For me, I actually don't think it's that much of a stretch, and here's why. I mean, Kiss has never hidden their love of melodic rock. And, you know, Paul Stanley, he's a big fan of Raspberries, a band that you guys have been compared to, I know. Um, and he's even said that he ripped off the opening riff of Deuce from Raspberry song Go All the Way. And you guys are a kick-ass rock band. So uh, I can only imagine I guess the one thing I would ask you about, what was it like getting up on stage? You have thousands of teenagers in makeup. I mean, how it's got to be a surreal experience.
It was, and they were a very young audience. You know, if you went outside of the arena, you'd see all these kids being dropped off by their parents because a lot of their crowd wasn't even driving age yet.
Right.
So it was a good opportunity for us, you know, to get these young ears, maybe grow a young fan base. But
I think how were they receptive to your music? Because like I said, I don't think there's that much of a stretch between the two of you. Honestly, that's my opinion. But
I don't think they were really that receptive. They were just Kiss was at the peak of their powers at the time, and those people went to see Kiss. It wouldn't have mattered. I don't think it would have mattered who played first. I mean, it was a good idea, I think, sort of a good idea to do that. Put us in front of a lot of people, but I don't think it really, there was probably other audiences we'd have been more effective against or
uh,
with or whatever.
from talking to people over the years, though, I've found that a lot of people that like us say, "Oh, I saw you guys with Kiss." I mean, there was us, you know, of our small fan base to this day. You know, I think that quite a few of them saw us early on with Kiss.
easy to get drowned out in the spectacle, though.
And during that tour, we did shows in between the Kiss dates where we would headline smaller venues, and that's really what I remember best about it. There were some great shows that we did where we got to play more than 20 minutes, and that was fun.
Following the tour, I mean, they were in the same cities as the tour, or this is just you would go off and do different dates.
Uh, it would be during off days,
Mm.
and it would be sometimes they'd be near the tour date, and sometimes it'd be far away.
Wait, so that's a lot of work. You're hopping on a bus in between shows and going to the next date, playing a show, meeting up with Kiss and doing the next date.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We didn't have anything else to do.
Don't have anything else to do. We'll just be rock stars.
Yeah.
That's great. There is a version of Keep a Knockin' on this album, Honor Among Thieves. I have to tell you, it is probably the coolest version of that song I have ever heard. And I am a big fan of the Fleetwood Mac version, but this is, I mean, the guitar work on here is really stellar. Gary, are you doing the slide work on this as well?
uh,
Yeah. I think
there's slide on that.
I think so.
I don't think I've listened to it since we recorded it. If it was slide, it was me.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh man, it is really great. It's this
Well, thank you.
slinky sort of kind of stonesy, just it's a great version of this song. It really and it also it really drifts outside this power pop box, right? I mean, this is a that was definitely a really rocking song.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Thank you.
After this album comes out and you tour with Kiss, and then you go back in the studio to do Babes on Broadway. So this was a little bit different for you guys, and I understand Gary Cox wrote about half or co-wrote about half the album, which is also a little bit different. So, I mean, I'll ask this to both of you. What is your recollection as to why this was so different this time?
Bill and I were out of songs. We were just in a dry spirit period, and you know, we'd hit periods where we were prolific, and then we'd hit periods where we weren't very prolific. We were always writing songs, but stuff that we thought was acceptable, to see the light of day, and we just didn't have that many good songs.
Mhm.
So we went to another source, and that's why it's different.
Since Gary Cox was the one that most of his compositions were um, uh, on the album. I mean, was it different in the studio then? I mean, in terms of, I don't know how you guys work when you're producing one of your songs versus one of Gary Cox's songs. I mean, how was that? How was that dynamic?
I'd say it's basically the same.
Okay.
Yeah, in the studio, it's you've got a song and everybody's doing their thing on it, and that doesn't change. It's just the songs are different, and the source is different, but the process is the same.
You guys are all on board with, as a band, just supporting each other's songs.
Yes.
Was there any did you guys feel any extra pressure here on this album? I understand that the record company had not been terribly supportive up to this point. Maybe after the first album when they released the single and it didn't do what they had hoped it would do. Um, I know this was the last album on your Columbia deal. Were you feeling like you really had to do something special with this album and really succeed? Or at this point, were you just assuming that, based on how Columbia had treated you up to this point, that this was going to be the last album that you guys did?
I might have been naive, but I didn't really look at it as a make it or break it album, but it was, you know. I don't know whether
Yeah, no, I remember after the first album, uh, Bill and I didn't want to be on Columbia Records anymore. There's
Hmm.
there's stuff that happened that I don't know if this is like PG that we don't want to get into, but there's stuff behind the scenes, and we were talking to management. You need to take us someplace else because after the silver and gold fiasco, they really weren't behind us anymore,
Hmm.
and it wasn't our fault. We didn't think because we didn't pick that song.
Hmm.
They picked it, it didn't work, and they blamed us. And we just thought, this is just not going to work out here. Let's try something else. So when the third CBS album came out, we were like, okay, well, now we can go someplace else. That's
that fulfilled the contract.
in a nutshell, yeah. And David, our manager, thought because Aerosmith was so huge at that time, Toys in the Attic had broken, and I think
Rocks.
Rocks had come out, and they were the biggest band in the world. And he said, "No, we'll stay with Columbia because I've got pull with them now. I can make them do what I want them to do. I think kind of,
But
yeah, but
Columbia didn't want somebody with that much pull with them having another successful act, you know?
so there was other stuff going on there, and we were ready to move on because our relationship with them wasn't they didn't really believe in us, and we were done with them. I was done with them.
There's one song on here, Steve. Uh, there's one song that you and the other Steve are credited on, which is the first time I had seen a credit for you guys, the Idi Amin Stomp. How, how did this song come about?
Oh gosh, there was Steve and Gary Cox and I in the practice room one day, waiting for the other guys. And Gary Cox's songs were always, very melodic and pretty. He had some really nice chords and chord changes. But then he had this streak because we were opening for Ted Nugent and these other, fairly heavy bands. that he would come out with these riffs, these guitar riffs that were so out of character for him. He would laugh while he was doing them. But we jumped on it with him, and we're having some fun with it, and somehow made it on the album. I
It's a great
probably
song.
shouldn't have, but it did.
No, I think it's a great song. Yeah. There's some really rocking songs on this album, honestly. It is that song, um, the song Loretta, I think is awesome. There is a version of and this goes back to you guys doing covers. The version of Come On Everybody is just badass. You guys really let loose on that thing.
I actually stood up playing it in the studio. Normally you're sitting around, you're nice and comfortable, you play the song. That one got me up.
You would never know that from listening to your bass lines because your bass lines are just um I mean you're such a melodic bass player. Um and it's great that we get to hear it in the mix, but I mean, do you think that came from, I know you started as a guitar player. Do you think that came from that? I mean, was there somebody else that was an inspiration for you developing your bass lines like that?
Both Garys were bass players, and they had an influence on me. And even Bill would sometimes hum parts. I would take from everywhere, and I'm just lucky that it got up into that was mixed loudly and people could hear it.
No, it just sounds great. It's really an impressive part of the band. Um,
Thank you.
so after this album came out, Gary Cox left the band. Um, I don't want to get too far away from the music, but I mean, did you guys part on good terms? I know he joined the band later when you guys reunited in the early 90s. I mean, was there a lot of communication during that time?
Yes.
He had a good opportunity,
Mhm.
and he gave it a try, and it was a good shot for him. It would wish it had worked.
Hey, he's a great songwriter. I think his songs seem to have a real early kind of, I don't know, Bee Gees quality to them, for lack of a better way of putting it. I mean, obviously you hear it on Who in the World on this album. I think Dandelions on Honor Among Thieves is a really a beautiful song.
He's a real romanticist, which made those heavy metal guitar parts much funnier when he would come out with them.
Out of all your albums, I have to admit, and I've mentioned this before, the one I'm most excited to talk about is Rave On. I think this is a great album. I mean, it is one incredible song after another. And every song here is a Herrewig Palicelli composition, right?
Thank you. That's very kind.
It was Artful Dodger in our purest form because it was just the band and Bob Dawson uh, producing with us. An old friend who they originally did the original demo tape was done at Bias Studios with Bob Dawson.
Yeah, we have a lot of history there. Bias Studios, they were in Falls Church, Virginia. Some of you people out there might have heard of Falls Church. And we love Bob. He was our guy. And when we first signed with CBS, that's where we tried everything, for 19-year-old kids to get them to record the album there. That's where we were comfortable, and where we had our whatever little experience we had was there. And we couldn't get him out of New York City,
Mm.
but we did finally. We got back with Bob, and it was the best. It was. We had more fun, and I think musically it was probably our best.
You guys seem less constrained almost on this album. It's like you could just tell you're having fun. And I've seen videos of your live performances, and I mean, you guys are a killer live band. And this seemed to, like you said, capture kind of that energy and that excitement better than the other albums did.
It's more organic
Mm-hmm.
in every way. It was just natural. Yeah, that's what it was. it's nice to know that you could hear that.
Oh yeah, it's very obvious. I think this is, like I said, this is just a brilliant album. Um, you were now, this is on a new label. You were on uh, Areola, which is a sub-label of Arista, correct?
Yes.
What was the deal that you guys had with them?
You remember
And I don't remember the actual deal. We had new management. We had signed with Henry LeConte from Agora,
that's right. We were no longer with Libra Krebs.
Okay.
and they got us the deal for the album with Areola out of Holland or
I think it was Holland. I think they
Holland.
were
Yeah, a Dutch label, Holland, somewhere like that. Denmark, Belgium.
Henry LeConte and a gentleman named Steve Popovich, I think, got that deal together.
So there's about 3 years from the last album to this album. So in that time, you guys were looking for new management, looking for a new label, and writing songs at the same time.
Yep.
And we'd always done well at the Agora in Cleveland. Henry LeConte, the owner of the Agora, always supported the band. So he seemed like a natural fit for manager, at least, in the interim.
You mentioned Cleveland, and I brought them up earlier. Um, all the videos out there where I see you guys are playing at the Agora in Cleveland, the crowd is just going bananas. You guys, I mean, you got girls jumping up on the stage. You have the crowd is just cheering so loud. What is it about Cleveland that really connected with you guys?
For starters, we got airplay there. There was one of the few places we got airplay, and it was on the two major FM stations, WMMS and I think M105 were the stations. But
Yeah.
they heard us every day on the radio. We were just like anybody else coming to town. It's Journey, it's whoever. Let's go see them. But they also have really great musical taste in Cleveland. It's not New York, it's not LA. You don't have to be in the club. You don't have to be.
Yeah.
What am I
No,
looking
it's
for?
like it's a big city with a small town feel. It's really a different. It's a whole different atmosphere, a different culture almost. They were insulated in their own little musical world, and we got played like crazy on the radio.
They liked what they liked. They didn't have to hear it was good from the music press or someone else. They come to
Right.
see, and if they liked you, they supported you.
They like a good rock band. Yeah.
Yeah,
I understand those two stations you mentioned they still get requests to play you guys.
I think we still get played on the oldies station. Yes, classic rock. I'm sorry, the classic rock station.
Well, when I listen to Rave On, um, I it could have been recorded yesterday. It is not something that is. I don't really put it in any particular era when I hear it. The music is really timeless.
It doesn't sound dated, does it? That's
Not at all.
due to the songs, the production, the recording. Yeah, I know just what you mean.
I think two of my favorite songs that you guys did at all. Um, and I think I've heard Steve, these might be your favorites as well. Is I don't want to see her and Now or Never Mind. I think I can listen to those on repeat. I think they're just great. Um, they have just these killer opening guitar riffs, Gary. And I think that sounds great. And Steve, on the bass, I've told you this before, but the bass on Now or Never Mind is just out of this world.
Well, thank you. Those two of my favorites, and I think they're two pure pop gems. There's just start to finish, everything about it makes sense.
Did the label release either of those as singles?
No, I think the single was "She's Just My Baby,"
Another great song. Yeah.
and they didn't have the manpower to promote the band in the U.S. We were one of the most added on albums in the country at the time it was released. I mean, I think I still have a Billboard uh, clipping showing the ads, the radio station ads through this particular week, and we were getting added all over the place, but there wasn't the manpower to push it from Areola.
Wow, we could have used the internet back then. It's a good way to
You
push
sure
things
could.
now. Yeah,
Yeah. YouTube, whatever. Yeah.
exactly. Um, Another one of those songs on there, Forever. Just another great song, great vocal. Um, and it starts out, Gary, it starts out just this beautiful song and these just brutal lyrics, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, I love this line. I wrote it down. I have to say it. It says, and so they say that this might be forever. Don't you hear me? I said, no, not never. Forever is such a long, long time. It's funny, but it's just brutal. And you have this gorgeous music playing behind it. It's, any stories around writing that song?
Not really.
Yeah.
We just Bill and I just got together. We used to we would plan, writing. I would come up with my ideas separately, and he'd have his ideas, and then we'd get together and say, okay, what have you got? Open up the notebooks and go through our stuff, and most of it just got rejected. Okay, what else have you got?
Not
Okay,
not by the band. I don't know
Yeah.
who's rejected stuff.
and I think it was just in one of those get-togethers that we said, okay, well now that I like that, let's work on that. So that's
Um,
it.
this album has never been released on CD. It's been a vinyl release, and it's actually not easy to find a good copy on vinyl, by the way. Um, is there is there any talk of this being reissued or being put on CD?
There, actually, there's some interest now in seeing that released, and we can't say a lot about it right now, but it could happen. It could happen this year. We'd love to see it.
If that comes to fruition, will you guys come back and so we can talk about the album some more?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Or even if it doesn't, we're always around.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Well, let me ask you a little bit more. We talked a little bit about you guys playing live. Did you guys love playing live?
Oh yes,
We loved it.
yeah.
So, what was your best time on tour?
There was a period after Rave On where we're playing, and unfortunately, Gary Cox wasn't with us, but Peter Bonta, the keyboard player, had joined us, and we just had the Rave On songs boiled down to an essence. Um, they were just effortless to play, and talking about that being an organic album, when they first brought the songs, Gary and Bill first brought the songs to us and played them, we just jumped in. We knew everybody knew what to do, what was needed. We had them ready to go in no time at all. And I think because they're such good songs, and like
It was really easy. We brought the songs. We we played them a couple of times. Everybody worked their parts out, and
and then getting out to play them live, we were so comfortable with them that we got to play around more live on those songs and add and subtract and go into different directions. It was a lot of fun.
And you guys didn't have any problem recreating the studio sound or with all the parts and everything?
zero.
Not at all, but going back to the first album, and that was difficult to recreate because of all the harmonies, and a lot of those were Bill singing, harmony with himself, and Gary Cox, everybody throwing in some harmonies. They're difficult to recreate live because as an opening act with getting your 30 minutes, you didn't get a sound check, and just the stage conditions weren't conducive to putting across some of what we'd recorded, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. Yeah. Gary, your guitar sounds um, on, especially like on something like Rave On, you go from everything, there's a lot of I'm assuming you were playing a Rickenbacker. There's some of that really wonderful jangle on some of these songs, and then um, and some other tones as well. So you had no problem setting these up on stage and switching back and forth. And
No, no problems. It's almost all Telecasters. The Ravon album with the Firebird. I had a Firebird that I played that I
okay,
love, but multiple Telecasters and the Rickenbacker, yep, which I've always had, which I love. No, they were just, there's nothing to recreate. Just plug in and
Play
start
well.
playing. That's all it was. There's not a lot of fancy stuff on it.
were you a Roger McGuinn fan?
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Yes. Major influence. I mean, as a little kid, the first time I heard it on little transistor radio, it was like stand up and
Salute.
salute the flag. Yeah, it was like he was talking just to me, and I'm sure everybody felt the same way. But yeah, it was a major influence.
It sounds great. It really sounds great. Yeah. I mean, actually on Rave On, there's a few songs that it's really prominent. Come close to me. It's a lie. There's the solo on I Don't Want to See Her. I
Yeah,
just love that sound. Yeah.
yeah, and it's on all the albums too, but it's pretty obvious there
Yeah.
for sure.
So you guys did a reunion show in 91, which is about, you guys took about 10 years off. Is that right?
Yeah, it
Yep.
was about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What were you doing in the meantime?
A variety of things. But one of the things I'll say is that we talk about the closeness of the band. In that period, most of us worked together in one form or another. I mean, Gary and I worked together, Gary and Gary and Steve worked together, Bill and Gary worked together at various jobs. We were all still very tight though and helping each other out. If you got a job, you get your friend in.
Nice. Well, how did you I mean, how did you guys get back together for this for the reunion show?
Hank,
How did that come about?
Hank
Oh,
called me.
Hank LeConte, of course. Yeah. Why don't you come back and play the Agora?
He was doing an anniversary, like a year-long anniversary for the Agora, I think, and he was bringing back acts that had particular meaning to him throughout the year to celebrate his. Well, I forget which anniversary it was.
I think that was the 40th, I think.
Anyway, so he called us to be involved in that. Is how that came about.
Gotcha. I've seen footage of that show. This is again uh one of the uh times when the crowd is just going bananas listening to you guys. And you also you did some more shows, I think 2005-ish for a few years after that. Was this primarily at the Agora? Were you guys traveling around at all?
No, the last handful of shows we did over the last 10 years or so were only at the Agora, the one place that would have us.
I'm sure lots of places would have you.
But there was always a demand to see the band there.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's always a great crowd too. They're having fun. You guys are having fun.
Exactly.
Well, in that 10-year space, so Gary, I understand you did some solo recording during that time as well. I heard it's actually not easy to find some of these songs. I heard Hurt You Too and Let Them Talk About Us, two great songs. And this is off your EP Foregone Conclusions, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, those are songs that Bill and I wrote together.
Oh,
I'm
great.
doing them, but they're songs by the two of us. Yes.
This is around 1985-ish.
Yep. Mid '80s. Yes.
So when I look on Discogs, I see there are a ton of people that want this album and very few people that have it. Was it released?
No. I mean, I made it. It was an EP. It had 4 songs on it, and just for my friends.
But here's a story. Here's a story that Gary won't tell, but I will, because he was recently contacted by a small boutique pop label in France that wants to include the song "Hurt You Too" on a compilation that they're releasing. It's called Pop Souperette. It's a French label. It's a vinyl series, and I don't know when it might be released. Do you?
I know it. He just called me and asked could he use it. I said sure. Somebody wants to hear it, play it. But I don't know when it's going to. I'm waiting to hear from him. He said he'd get back to me. But anyway, that song, the band played that song, a different version of it. Hurt You Too was written either right after the Rave On album or for the Rave On album.
Mm-hmm.
And we never, as a band, could get it. We never got it right. It was just, I don't know. It was like, there's something here, but we couldn't bring it out. And then after the band broke up, I recorded it. Peter had a studio and I went down there and recorded it. It was just, came out easy.
Did any of the other guys play on that song, or were you doing most of the instruments?
Steve played drums on it and Peter played on it and I played on it, just the three of us.
And I was working full time. I'm sure they would have wanted me there, but I couldn't get off work.
I thought the bass didn't sound quite right.
Well, that was Gary and Peter.
Just kidding, Gary.
Both fine bass players.
So is there any way anybody can get their hands on this album, or is it just there you pressed just a certain number of copies?
I'll see if I probably got 200 or 300 copies in the basement.
Well, there's I've got a box of the Rat single, Long Time Away, and he's got his EP. Yeah, just let us know.
I'm going to hit you guys up after this.
Yeah. It's got a version of Going Back on it, which is, pretty much everybody's favorite song, or on everybody's top 10 list, the Carole King song.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Going Back.
Yeah. I do a version of that. And Sure Love.
Yeah. Good songs.
Those are the two songs that I haven't been able to find online. And I know in the comments for some of these videos from like Hurt You Too, people are just like, does anybody have this? Does anybody have this? So there's a demand. People want to hear this.
Okay. Well,
no.
We'll talk after we're done.
We'll talk. Yeah, we'll talk. Well, actually, that brings me to another question. I had heard, and maybe it was in a different interview, I had heard that you guys had recorded a bunch of demos as Artful Dodger after Rave On came out for a subsequent album that just didn't materialize. What happened to those demos? And is that true? I should ask too.
They're on tape under Gary's bed at his house.
They are.
That's true. True story. They were under Gary Cox's bed, but his wife turned them over to Gary Herrewig. But there are about 10 songs, and there's half of a live album of songs that were actually ready to go. There's Wayside, Scream, Come Close to Me, Honor Among Thieves, and a killer version of Twist and Shout.
Wow.
So that was going to be one side of Rave On at one time, and then it was decided that it would be all studio songs. But so we have half a dozen live songs and about 10 demos in various, forms of completion. But if anybody out there wants to put them out, just give us a call.
That would be awesome. Well, let's talk after this. Let's figure out how we can get these songs out there. With all my connections, of course, right? Little guy with a YouTube channel. That's really exciting to know that there's still some music out there that we haven't heard. And you mentioned another cover. I heard a version of The Kids Are All Right, and I think it sounded live. Was that one of the ones that you recorded as well?
That was early on at the Agora in 75 or 76. The Agora used to, on their Sunday nights at the Agora, they used to record all those shows. I think nothing ever saw the light of day because of the just the complexity of the music business and trying to get the rights, for a club to release recordings of these national acts. But lots of stuff somewhere in the can.
That one is just, I mean, again, it's probably one of the best covers of that song I've ever heard.
We in those days we covered "Kids Are All Right," "Showdown."
Hmm.
There's going to be a showdown. Some Stone songs. I'd like to have a CD of our covers.
You just, whatever song that you guys take for a cover, you just take it to the next level. It's just, I mean, you own it. It becomes an Artful Dodger song, and take it to places that I just don't think the original recordings went.
Those are labors of love for sure.
No. Yeah, you sound like you're having fun.
That was our reason for being.
That's true.
Do you guys still play?
Gary plays every day. Me, not so much.
Is this your comfort thing, Gary, holding onto the guitar while you're talking?
It's comfort, but it's just my thing. Yeah, I've just always got a guitar.
That's awesome. Are you recording at all? Or you still write?
No, not recording. No, one of my sons wants me to. He's got a studio in his house. He says, "Come on, Dad, let's record something." Maybe one day, but I just make myself happy.
That's what it's all about.
And Bill's son and Gary's son and my son all play and are all very good.
They ever play together?
No, I don't think so.
No,
Is there any music today that you guys listen to that you really like? Any popular music today that you guys listen to?
Taylor Swift, big Swifty.
You're a big Swiftie.
No, it's not true. That's not true.
I'm actually a Taylor Swift fan. Just for everybody out there. I think she's a great songwriter.
Oh yeah, yeah. Uh, Gosh, I go back to the old stuff. I don't hear anybody new. I'm not a radio person. I prefer to be my own DJ.
Yeah.
So I just play things from my collection.
Like, what do
How
you
about
what do
you?
you like to listen to?
Me personally,
Hmm?
I mean, I'll go back to yeah, say Dwight Yoakam or Roseanne Cash. Some of the Americana people. Still the Beatles.
Gary, how about you?
what do I listen to? I listened to Thelonious Monk
He's
and John
jazz now.
Coltrane this morning.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'll go back. I've still got to get the Stones fix every now and then, but I've listened to other stuff now.
Yeah.
Just for different energy, which I love.
I know the music business has changed quite a lot over the years, but do you have any advice for any younger bands starting out? Any pitfalls to avoid?
Gosh, put yourself on YouTube anymore. That seems to be the trick.
Just do what makes you happy.
There we go.
Yeah, true. Play what you love.
Play what you love, make yourself happy, and hopefully other people will like it too. Just be true to yourself.
And if you get a break, surround yourself with smart people like Taylor Swift. I mean, obviously she's got such a team and a machine behind her, and not everybody is smart enough to put together the right people. I think that's the key to success these days.
Yeah.
When you see somebody that with that much going on, there's an army behind that. And it's, like as soon as you get more than two or three people together, it's like herding cats. And to be able to do that successfully is quite, as probably a bigger achievement than the musical part of it, really.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talented people out there, and we don't hear about a whole lot of them because of that kind of stuff, I think.
Did you guys have a big team behind you, or were you guys taking care of most of the stuff yourself?
We had a team. We did. We had the management company had, it wasn't just us.
Mhm.
There was a team, and I suspect that had we'd gotten bigger, sold more albums and become a larger presence, that team would have gotten bigger along with it. If we needed more people, we'd have been able to add.
Would you recommend any of your kids being in the music industry?
Oh no.
You didn't hesitate.
No, I'm just kidding. If that's what my son really wanted, I'd be all for it.
Yep, same here.
Yeah. But that's not the direction they're going. They just play for fun.
Yes.
That's really the best thing.
That's how it starts. That's how everybody starts.
One last question. So I know you guys are a bit spread out. We talked about, Billy's in Florida. The other Steve is in North Carolina. Peter's in Italy. But I will tell you that Wikipedia shows that you guys are still together, that you haven't broken up. Any chance you guys are going to play together at some point?
Bill's health, while it is improving, prevents him from actually singing, doing that kind of singing that he used to do.
Well, if you do another show together, doesn't matter where it is, let me know. 100% I will be there.
We will.
Yeah, I'd like to think it's not impossible.
Never say no.
Never say no.
Never say never.
Steve, Gary, I can't thank you enough for coming to talk to me today. It has been an honor. It has been really a pleasure. Like I said, please I hope we can do this again. I've just really enjoyed talking with you guys.
Absolutely.
And I hope it wasn't too, I'm still a little clunky at this, and I hope I wasn't too nervous. And Gary, I hope your nerves settled as well.
Oof. You've been very good. I've been very nervous, but it's been fun. It really has been. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to take a quick second too, and a very special thanks to Ed Turner. Without him, none of this would have been possible. Ed has produced an excellent documentary, Ticket to Right, about the golden era of rock journalism. So if you haven't already seen it, I'm going to put a link down in the description. So please check it out. It is, do yourself a favor. It's great.
It is great. I have seen it. Thoroughly enjoyed it, as I did this interview.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed it. I can't tell you how much this means to me, guys.
Thank you.
Steve Cooper, Gary Herrewig, wishing you the best in 2024 and beyond. Like I said, please, let's keep in touch, and let's do this again when we hear about this Rave-On reissue.
Absolutely.
Or before.
Sure. Count on it.
Yep.
All right. Very special thanks again to my guests, Steve Cooper and Gary Herrewig. If you missed the link earlier, please have a look at the GoFundMe page for Artful Dodger's lead singer, Bill Palicelli, to help with some of his medical expenses. Bill, we wish you well and hope for a speedy recovery. This is Bijan for Pop Rocks Radio. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.